Hello everybody, welcome along to our press conference today. My name is David McNeil. I'm going to be your MC. Last year, as probably everybody in the room knows, Iwao Hakamada, who was sentenced to death in 1968 for the murder of a family and spent nearly half a century on death row, was finally acquitted. A court ruled that the evidence in his case had been fabricated. Japan had come close to ending the life of an innocent man. Experts believe that there were more such cases. The Hakamada case has spurred public calls to reconsider Japan's use of capital punishment. The Japan Federation of Bar Associations set up an expert panel of politicians, prosecutors, and senior police to look into the problems associated with the death penalty. The panel has recommended setting up an official body under the Diet to fundamentally re-examine the death penalty system. But opinion polls, which we will survey today, show a majority of the public still supports the death penalty in Japan, and the government has not acted on this proposal to set up a Diet inquiry. Meanwhile, Japan conducted its first execution in nearly 3 years in June by hanging Takahiro Shiraishi, who was convicted of murdering 9 people after luring them to his apartment using social media. This weekend, the 5th Regional Congress on the Death Penalty will be held in Tokyo. We have 3 speakers today, 3 distinguished speakers with a lot of experience of this issue. They include Raphaël Chenuil-Hazan. He's Executive Director of the French Ensemble contre la peine de mort. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Or Together Against the Death Penalty. Yuichi Kaido, of course, who's an old friend of the club, has been here many times. He's the president of the Center for Prisoners' Rights. And Yuji Ogawara, who is the Secretary General of the Japan Federation of Bar Associations Death Penalty Committee. They will give a presentation. My job is to get out of the way. And once they're finished, we'll take your questions. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. Oh, and our interpreter today is Hisako Imai. Dozo, come to you.
I start. Okay. Thank you very much to be for all of you to be there today. Why did we choose Tokyo and Japan to host the 5th Regional Congress on the death penalty? Because times has come to see and to push for the abolition in East Asia. ECPM is the worldwide organization who fight against the death penalty for many years. And the current and the global situation is definitely for the abolition. Abolition worldwide is irreversible. It is a trend, irreversible trend. Nowadays, 77% of the countries represented at the United Nations have abolished the death penalty in law or in practice. Only 23% retains the death penalty and use the death penalty on a regular basis. And we can say that even among these 23%, 47 countries, among these 47 countries, only half of them, 20 countries, use the death penalty on a regular basis every year, almost every year. And the top 5 executionist countries in the world are the well-known, of course, China, in order China, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Yemen. And I would like to also highlight the very few democracies who still retain use the death penalty as USA, India, and of course Japan. Nowadays, we have at least 28,000 people on death row, who are still on death row, on our estimation. I say at least because one of the very important issues on the death penalty is the lack of transparency in many countries, and especially here in Asia and in East Asia, in North Korea, in China, in Vietnam, the issue of the data and figures on the death penalty, executions, prisoners, trials are almost secret states and a real problem at the international level. I would like also to highlight the fact that in the US, the last one of the very few democracy, the use of the death penalty decrease almost every year. Almost every year you have a state, a US state, who abolish the death penalty. And the support to the death penalty in the US by the public opinion also decrease every year according to a yearly survey conducted by Gallup on the situation of the support to the death penalty in the United States. What is the situation at the regional level in Asia? First of all, Asia has all the different, the other continents have some progresses. Some countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Cambodia, Philippines, Mongolia, Timor-Leste, and all the countries from Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, have already abolished the death penalty, which is a very interesting trend. Some others have launched some positive steps recently. Malaysia, for example, have abolished the death penalty, the mandatory death penalty, which leads Malaysia to reduce drastically the number of executions and to move forward on the next steps toward abolition. Vietnam, even Vietnam, very recently reduced the number of crimes possible by the death penalty, which shows that even in countries like Vietnam, they are thinking about the situation of the death penalty in their country and the use of the death penalty. So it's important to have in mind this global situation. In East Asia, as I mentioned, there is two main sub-regions who continue to use the death penalty very much. Middle East, and especially in the Gulf countries, and East Asia. But even in East Asia, we can find the diversity of situation. Mongolia has abolished the death penalty in 2017. South Korea carried out the last executions almost 30 years ago, in 1997. Taiwan recently relaunched executions in 2025, this year, after a nearly 5 year of moratorium, which shows that Taiwan is close also to the abolition and need to be pushed away, to push for the abolition. Japan, as I said, is one of the very few democracies who still use the death penalty. And it's important to realize that democracy and most of the democracy, 99% of the democracy in this world are abolitionists. It's important for a democracy to understand in which world, in which situation, regional and international situation, they are included. And last but not least, and I already say that China and North Korea is not only a secret state, a state secret, it's also a political instrumentalization and a political tool for to maintain the authoritarian regime of China and North Korea. So the objective of this regional congress, and we are waiting for you during this congress, is to highlight the situation in order to prepare the next World Congress, who will take place in Paris next June, coming June, from the 30th of June to the 2nd of July in Paris. The World Congress will, against the death penalty, will be opened by President Emmanuel Macron, but many other very high-level figures, including head of governments and ministers of justice and foreign affairs from many countries in the world. So we expect that Japan will be represented first, We expect that most of the countries in East Asia will be represented, and we hope that this Congress here in Tokyo and the World Congress in Paris will help to highlight the reality of the death penalty, not in the mind of the public opinion who thinks that they need the death penalty for security, but the reality of the death penalty in the prisons, in the judicial system, and in the world. And the reality nowadays, its abolition is going to happen in Japan and East Asia. The only question is when. Because as I said, and as I have introduced my speech, abolition is irreversible in this world nowadays, like the end of slavery, like the abolition of torture, slavery, decolonization. It's irreversible. The only question is when Japan, when South Korea, when Taiwan, and other countries will catch the train of abolition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The other speaker, Ogawara Sensei, would you like to say anything, or Kaido Sensei?
私が先です。どうぞ。はい、日本語でお願いします。私はこのフォーラムを、ラファエルさんの ECPM とともに主催している韓国人権センターの代表です。
Hello, I am the president of Center for Prisoners' Rights, which is co-hosting this forum together with ECPM.
韓国人権センターは国際人権基準に従って拘禁施設の人権状況を改善することを目的に活動してきた組織ですが、その当初から死刑の廃止を求めてきました。
We at Center for Prisoners' Rights have been, based on the international human rights standards, been working to try and improve the human rights situations in the prisons in Japan. However, we have always asked for abolition of capital punishment system as well.
それはすべての殺人が許されてないのならば、国による殺人にも反対しなければならないという信念に基づいています。
Because we believe that if no homicide should be allowed in the country, then the institutional or the homicide by the government or the country should also not be approved. And so that's why we are against it.
センターの創設から30年、監獄法が改正され、新たな拘禁刑制度が導入され、日本の刑務所は大きく変わろうとしています。
And it's been 30 years since we set up this center. And during this period, recently the Prison Act has been amended and the new imprisonment system has been implemented in Japan. And so the prison situations have changed quite a lot recently.
法務省の矯正局は現在、矯正ムーブメントという、ミッションバリューステートメントを掲げていますが、この矯正は、コレクションだけではなくて、共に生きるという、日本語で矯正というんですが、言葉を掲げています。
And at the Ministry of Justice, the Rehabilitation Bureau, they are actually promoting this movement called Rehab Movement. And in their value statement, they talk about how people can rehabilitate while looking into their sins.
ちょっと変えちゃいました。すいません。この通りやりましょうか。
いいです。
はいはい。このミッションバリューステートメントの中で、法務省はこう言っています。人は社会とのつながりからよりよく生きたいという思いが生まれる。その人は犯罪や非行をした人であると同時に再び社会の一員となる人だからというふうに述べています。私はこのステートメントの考え方を全面的に支持します。
And in that value statement by the ministry, it says that once the prisoners face themselves, they will be able to face their sins too. And it's also very important that those prisoners have a connection with the society, because by being connected to the society, they would want to live a better life And so, although they may have committed a crime or have been involved in malicious acts, however, they are somebody who has to be reintegrated into the society again.
今、全国の刑務所では、自らを見つめ直し、生き直すための新しいプログラムが、取り組まれるようになっています。
So, based on the statement, in the prisons around the country, at the moment there is this new program introduced so that people can face themselves and then start thinking about how they can start afresh and live a better life.
私はこのように一方で述べながら、他方で死刑制度の存続を認め、そして一部の死刑確定者に死刑を執行していくということが正義にかなうとは思えません。
And while the ministry supports this kind of rehabilitation, on the other hand, we still maintain the system of capital punishment as a country, and we are still executing prisoners. And I don't think these two concepts could live together in harmony.
どんな残虐な罪を犯したものであっても、この人に対する適切な働きかえさえあれば、自らの罪を悔い、新しく生き直すことができるはずです。少なくともそのような機会が与えられるべきです。
I believe that even very serious criminals could still be able to regret and atone for their sins and start to live a new life, giving an appropriate support from the outsiders, and at least such opportunities should be given to everyone.
この地域会合が日本で開催されることには大変大きな意義があると思います。それはこの東アジアの地域が韓国やモンゴルなどの例外はありますが、全体として死刑が制度として維持され、現実に執行されている国々だからです。
And I feel that there's this great significance that we're hosting this 5th Regional Congress on the death penalty in Asia in Japan, because the East Asian countries, while some of the countries are excluded like Korea or Mongolia, but many of the other countries still have death penalty system, and they're maintaining it and actually executing prisoners.
日本においても過去3年間死刑が執行されないという期間がありました。これは袴田事件という死刑囚の再審無罪がありましたし、また元検事総長や元警察庁長官も交えた会議体で死刑の執行を求めるという議論がなされていた。このことは小川原さんが後で紹介してくれると思いますが、にもかかわらず政府の執行の再開によってこの執行停止の継続ということが断ち切られてしまったということは大変残念でなりません。
And in Japan, over the last nearly 3 years, there had been no execution. However, and that was partially because there was acquittal of Mr. Hakamada with the Hakamada case retrial, and also there were other discussions around death penalty, which will be introduced by Mr. Ogawara later. And in that discussion, we involved the Secretary General or ex-Secretary General of the prosecutor or the top of the National Police Agency. And we were hoping that the death penalties will be suspended. However, now that the government has started execution again, I really regret that this suspension has been stopped.
日本国民の多くは世界中で死刑が現実に執行されている国が20カ国を下回っているということは知りません。また死刑の執行が事前に告知されることなく当日の朝に執行されているということも知りません。また絞首刑が鋭い痛みを与える残虐な刑罰の執行方法であるということも知りません。
And actually, many of the Japanese citizens don't know that there's nowadays only less than 20 countries who are still maintaining the death penalty system, and also the fact that the prisoners are only notified of their execution on the day of the execution, and that the method of execution is hanging, which gives strong pain to the prisoner, and that is a very violent method of execution. These are not known by the general public.
この死刑に関する事実を知ることによって市民の意見が変わる可能性があると思います。
And so, by letting the general public know about these realities around capital punishment, the sentiment or the opinions of the people may change.
死刑の執行を続けていくということが日本という国の品位と名誉を傷つけているのだということをこのフォーラムを機に多くの日本国民に知ってもらいたいと私は思っています。
And that I would like everyone to know that by continuing with death penalty in Japan, this may be harmful to the fame of the country.
配布させていただいたプログラムを見ていただければ、この、会合には多くの国連の人権関係の関係者たち、さらにはアジア地域の司法関係者なども集まることになっています。大変有意義なディスカッションが聞けることだと思います。韓国人権センターはこのフォーラムの成功のために全力を挙げることをここに誓います。
And we have distributed the brochure of the Congress, and if you look into it, you will see that there are many UN organizations related to human rights issues are involved in this meeting, and also many people from the legal industry will also participate. And so I think there is a great or meaningness to this Congress, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Ogawara-san?
Oh, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Yuji Ogawara. Thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk the death penalty in Japan and JFBA's efforts to abolish it. JFBA is the Japan Federation of Bar Association. I'm Secretary General at the Central Board on Abolition of the Death Penalty. Now, I'm sorry, from here, I will speak in Japanese. 日本には死刑囚が105人います。そのうち49人が再審請求をしていると言われています。
At the moment, there are 105 people sitting on death row in Japan at the moment, and 49 of them are appealing for a retrial.
日本でも2年11ヶ月、死刑の執行がなされなかったんですけれども、今年の6月に1名の死刑が執行されました。
And for 2 years and 11 months, there was no execution in Japan, but this year in June, there was an execution of one.
そして今年の12月にさらに死刑の執行がなされる恐れがあります。
And I further fear that there may be other executions happening in December of this year.
昨年、日本では有識者、国民各界各層からなる有識者からなる会議が持たれて、日本の死刑制度について考える懇話会という有識者会議が、死刑制度には放置できない問題点があり、国会及び内閣に死刑制度について議論する公的な会議体を設けるべきだと提言しました。
And last year, we had a roundtable for reflecting upon the death penalty system of Japan, where industry experts came together to discuss about death penalty in Japan. But we concluded that there are problems to the current system that should not be left undealt with, and that there should be a public body to discuss these topics in the Diet or the Cabinet.
はい、 この講話会の提言といいますけれども、これはインターネットで全文を英語で読むこともできます。
And these recommendations that came out of the roundtable is public and available on the website, and so you will be able to read them if you're interested.
日本ではさらに昨年、袴田事件という再審無罪事件で、無罪が最終的に確定した人がいますけれども、逮捕されてから50年以上がかかりました。
And last year, the Hakamada case got an acquittal after retrial, but it took more than 50 years from the arrest of the person accused.
ご承知かと思いますけれども、日本では1980年代に4件再審無罪がありました。
And as you may know, there were 4 cases where acquittal was made after retrial back in the 80s in Japan.
再審で無罪になったのが5件あるわけですけれども、それ以外にもおそらく無罪が証明しきれないままに死刑が執行されてしまったケースもあるんだろうと思います。
And so in total, we have seen 5 such cases where acquittal was made. However, there must be or maybe more cases where prisoners' innocence was not proved, and in some cases, their execution may have already happened.
冤罪による死刑のご執行を本当に避けようと思ったら、死刑制度そのものを廃止するしか方法はありません。
So, in order to prevent these wrongful death sentences from happening, then abolishment of capital punishment system is the only way.
講話会提言の具体的な内容とその説明は、今度11月の9日の日に、11月の8日の日に、日弁連も主催の一人に加わっているラウンドテーブル会議で、中本弁護士から詳しくご説明をしたいと思います。
And the details of the roundtable recommendations will be explained in the meeting on November 8th from one of the roundtable members who is also a JFBA member, a lawyer Nakamoto.
日弁連は、今後も死刑廃止のために努力を重ねるわけですけれども、国際社会が日本の死刑制度をどう見ているのかということを、日本の政治家や日本国民に突きつけることが大変重要だと思っています。
So JFBA will continue to act so that the death penalty system will be abolished. However, I think the pressure that the international society would give us by urging us to abolish the system would also have great power, and it will definitely help.
ここにいらっしゃる皆さんが日本の政治家に日本の死刑制度についてどう思うのかというふうに取材していただけることがとても有力な力になると思います。
And so if one of you would go up to our Diet members and ask them, what do you think of the death penalty system? Those could initiate such discussions, and it would be helpful.
恥ずかしい話ですけれども、日本の政治家は日本のジャーナリストに質問されるよりも外国のジャーナリストから質問されることに弱いんではないかと思います。
And I am a little embarrassed to say, but rather than Japanese journalists asking these questions, it might be even more powerful if a foreign journalist would ask those questions.
今後ともご協力をよろしくお願いいたします。以上です。
And so thank you for your support in that respect.
Thank you very much to the 3 speakers. Well, we will open it up to questions. If you want to ask a question, please show your hand. I will take the first question if that's okay. As Ogawara-san and Kaido-san both pointed out, there's been a nearly 3-year moratorium on executions following the Hakamada case. Are we now back to business as usual then? Was the government just waiting till the fuss ended, and now it's going to continue where it left off? To
こ
anybody?
こ3年ほど死刑の執行がなかったということで、その背景にはその袴田事件とかもあると思うんですけれども、また再開されたということで、今後はまた定期的になされると思いますか？
日本で2年11ヶ月死刑の執行がなされなかったのは袴田事件による影響だけではありません。日本の政治家、法務大臣が失言をしてしまったり、国際的な会議が日本で開かれたり、日本でいろいろ重要な会議が開かれたりする中で、日本の政治状況や国際的な会議が開かれる中で、さらに袴田事件の判決が出たということで、2年11ヶ月、死刑の執行をできないままの状況が続いたんだと思っています。ただ、さらに日本の政治状況は今年の夏、すごく不安定になりました。石破内閣が倒れれば、その後、どういう政治状況になるかわからないという中で、法務省が死刑制度を残すために、象徴的に1名の死刑の執行を政治的にしたんだろうというふうに思います。
So the reason why we didn't see any execution over the last 2 and 11 months is not only because of Hakamada case. There were several other reasons, including some inappropriate remark by the Minister of Justice, and that there were some important international meetings in Japan, and so we didn't want to arouse any other discussions around this. And so that's why we were not able, or probably not able, to do any executions for the last nearly 3 years. But then the political situation has changed quite a bit over summer this year. Now the Ishiba administration has ended, and after that there were a lot of uncertainty as to which way the political discussions will go to. And so as for the Ministry of Justice, I think they sort of symbolically executed one prisoner so that they can show the significance of or the meaningness of having a death penalty system in Japan.
That seems to suggest the death penalty is political, but of course the government would argue it's not political, that it's impartial justice. You know, it's giving the victims of crime some kind of recompense. But you're suggesting, Ogawara Sensei, that this is a political punishment. I just want to be clear about that.
そうしますとその政治的に利用されているというようなところもあるんですが、あくまでも司法というのは独立したもので、客観的に被害者のためにも犯罪者を裁くというために行われているものという考えもあると思うんですけれども、政治とのつながりというのもやはり結構あるんでしょうか。
私自身は日本の死刑制度は極めて政治的なものだと思っています。
Well, I personally believe that death penalty system in Japan is pretty heavily involved with the politics.
刑事司法、裁判員裁判はもちろん死刑判決を言い渡すことがありえますけれども、すでに100名を超える死刑囚がいて、その中から誰をどの時期に死刑を執行するのかは極めて政治的な問題なんだと私は思います。
Well, under the independent judicial system in Japan, of course, we decide that the suspect should be executed or not, or decide on what sort of punishment they should receive. However, while we have more than 100 prisoners sitting on death row today, when or in which order to execute them is sort of decided politically, I believe.
世論調査の結果が8割以上、日本では国民が死刑を尊重を望んでいるんだと いうことが、死刑が日本で存置されている理由だと説明される場合が多いと思います。国会議員もよくそう言います。
And the fact that when you do a poll, about more than 80% of the population would support keeping the death penalty system, and that is mainly used as the reason why we still have this system, and politicians would like to draw on this poll as well.
これが日本の文化的な伝統、死刑を尊重する、命を奪った者は命をもって償うべきだという文化的な伝統によるものだとか、思想とか文化によるという説明をする人もいますけれども、私は違うと思います。
And some others may say this is due to the cultural mindset that we have, that if somebody takes somebody else's lives, they have to atone by losing their life as well. But I don't believe in this type of cultural argument either.
私は日本の政治家ともたくさん会って、死刑の問題について国会で議論してほしいということを依頼しますけれども、ほとんどの政治家は応じません。
I have met with many politicians, and I always ask them so that this death penalty system will be rediscussed in the Diet, but these politicians are not willing to do so.
それは日本の文化とか伝統によるものではなくて、彼が自分の選挙民に死刑について廃止だとか議論しようというと、票を入れてもらえなくなる、落選する恐れがある、そういうテーマを自分が中心になって発言することは嫌なんだということを言います。
This has nothing to do with the Japanese tradition or the cultural mindset. I believe that these politicians fear raising this kind of topic to the Diet sessions. It's because they may lose the support of the voters.
その問題に一石を投ずる、それを批判的に考えて捉えたのが講和会の提言で、元検察庁のその検事総長や警察庁の長官も含めた有識者が死刑に賛成か反対かに関係なく、日本の死刑制度にはさまざまな問題点があるから、内閣や国会に公的な会議体を設ける。世論調査の結果ではなく、公的な会議体を設けるべきだと提言したわけです。ですから、これは極めて重要な提言だと思います。
And given that situation, the roundtable actually recommended that we should have a public body inviting those who are for and against abolition of the death penalty system, that we should have these public body within the Diet and the cabinet.
以上です。
Thank you. Raphaël, you wanted that?
Maybe to answer to your question about instrumentalization of the death penalty and political tool, it's important to have in mind that political instrumentalization of the death penalty is not only used by countries like China, North Korea, or Iran, including in democracy. It could be used, and the best example is the first mandate of Donald Trump. At the end of his mandate, he used the death penalty. He relaunched executions after a moratorium of 17 years of moratorium at the federal level. 16 people have been executed in 2 months at the very, very end of his mandate, the last 2 months of his mandate. The only reason of these executions, after once again 17 years of moratorium, was political instrumentalization of these poor people on death row in the U.S. And then, since the during this second mandate, executions and death penalty has been a political tool in every single speech of Donald Trump, and is used as a political instrument into the national US debate. And it's not a very good sign for democracy. And it's a sign that something is getting wrong in democracy when politicians use the death penalty as a political argument. Once again, abolition is a trend, global trend. 77%, as I said, abolish the death penalty, and maybe more if you include countries who do not use the death penalty anymore, even if they are included into the retentionist countries. So it's important. Recently, in the past 10 years, countries like Turkey and Erdogan, President Erdogan, who expressed his willingness to reintroduce the death penalty, at the same time that the willingness of reduce the Turkish democracy. Same happens in the Philippines during President Duterte presidency era a few years ago. He tried to relaunch the death penalty and reintroduce the death penalty because the situation of the democracy in the Philippines was catastrophic at the same time. So it's not a war. It's an award to the Japanese public opinion. You have to be careful about the use of the death penalty because it's a bad sign, and it's a bad sign for democracy all over the world.
Thank you. Just scanning the room again. If you have a question, just raise your hand and indicate that you would like to ask it. While you consider it, I'm just going to ask a question from online. Oh, and by the way, the survey that Ogawara Sensei mentioned was published in February. It was a Naikaku survey, so a Japanese government survey. Over 80%, 83% of Japanese people favor the death penalty, according to the survey. And the really surprising part, to me at least, was that that's up 2.3 percentage points over the last 5 years, despite the Hakamada case. But as was pointed out to me by Ogawara Sensei, the percentage of people against the death penalty has also gone up. That more than doubled. So the percentage who supported and against it, one or the other. Do you want to clarify that, or is that okay? Is that all right, Ogawara Sensei?
このアンケート結果、先ほどの世論調査の結果について何かさらに、おっしゃりたいことありますか？
日本では政府による世論調査が5年に1回行われています。で、昨年の10月に行われた世論調査の結果が今年公表されたんですけれども、死刑もやむを得ない、死刑に積極的に賛成だという聞き方じゃなくてですね、死刑もやむを得ないという問いに対して 83.1% がそう回答して、死刑は廃止すべきだという人が 16.5% いました。
So actually, the national survey is done once every 5 years on this theme of death penalty, and one poll was made last year in October, and the results came out this year. And the way they asked is that, are you, or can you live without the death penalty system? And 83.1% answered no, while 16.5% were supporters of abolition.
これは5年前の世論調査に比べると、死刑もやむを得ないと言った人が数%増えて、死刑は廃止すべきだという人が相当数増えました。
And when you compare that against the previous survey that we have done, actually several percentage has gone up. Who says I cannot live without a death penalty system, and also we have seen increase in the amount of people who are favor to abolition.
5年前のその世論調査というのは、調査員が面談をして回答を求める方法で、わからないという回答もあったんだと思います。
However, the way they did the survey 5 years ago was interview-based, and the interviewer accepted answers like, I don't know.
しかし昨年行われた世論調査はコロナの影響もあって面談式ではなくて書類による回答でその分からないという項目がなかったんだろうと思います。
However, the survey that we did last year was after COVID, and so it was not interview-based, but it was more of an online survey or document-based surveys. And so in the survey paper, there were no answer like, I don't know.
それによって死刑もやむを得ないという人の数が少し増えて死刑を廃止すべきだという人がだいぶ数が増えました。
So that's why we have, or the answer split to whether they want to maintain the system or want to abolish it. And we have seen slight increase in people who want to maintain the system and a lot of, or more increase in people favor of abolition.
でしかもさらにその中には将来死刑を廃止したらどうかとか日本でも仮釈放ない終身刑を導入したら死刑廃止に賛成かという問いが含まれていました。
And also, there were questions like, what do you think about abolishing in the future? Or what do you think about introducing some imprisonment without any parole in lieu of death penalty? What do you think about those options?
その結果を総合して考えると、現在も将来も日本は死刑制度を残すべきなんだという人が 53.4% いました。
And those who want to maintain the death penalty system today and also in the future was 53.4%.
現在または将来、死刑廃止に賛成だという人は 45.1% いました。
Well, 45.1% were actually in favor of abolishing it sometime from now to sometime in the future.
ですから私は世論調査をきちんと分析すれば日本の世論というのはこれから先もずっと死刑を尊重すべきだと言っているのではなくて政治家が一定の決断をすれば死刑の廃止を受け入れるそういう世論だと思っています。
So if you really look into this result very closely, I believe that not many people wish to maintain this death penalty system in the long term. But if the politicians makes the decision to abolish it, then this public sentiment or opinion may change.
ですから政治家の決断が非常に重要なんだと思っているわけです。以上です。
And so that's why I believe a big decision by the government is very important.
Thank you. Raphaël?
Yeah, just one thing to add about public opinions worldwide. First, as Mr. Ogawara just say, that's true that it's always important to see how the survey has been conducted. If you ask only yes or against, for yes, you will have always a strong support from public opinions in favor of the death penalty. But if you introduce your survey by a context, by saying that there is potential innocent and error, judicial error, that saying that there is alternatives on the situation, you can find a very different survey. The best example, once again, and very similar to Japan, was in the US. During years and years, the support of the American to the death penalty was massive. And in the last 10 years, Gallup, the Gallup company, survey company, conducted survey with different approach and proposing different alternatives and many questions about this issue, introducing the context with a very high number of innocent people on death row who have been raised by the Innocence Project, a famous Innocence Project in the US. And nowadays, the support from the Americans to the death penalty decreased very much to almost 50-50. So, and in few years ago, it was 80% of the Americans who support the death penalty. So it's important. Secondly, it's important also to see how much the debate on the death penalty is really free in the country. When I mean free, is not only a question of dictatorship or not dictatorship. Is it easy here, and is it open in the media that death penalty is not deterrent at all? All information about the deterrency, about innocence, about even in the Japan, how many people know that the first countries in the history to have abolished the death penalty was China and Japan in the 7th and 8th century. In China, it was during the Han Dynasty in the 7th century. It was for a very short period of time. It was an abolition, not completed abolition, of course, but it was an abolition period where the Emperor of China, and after followed by Emperor in Japan, stopped the use of the death penalty and control the death penalty and torture. It was interesting. At the time in Europe, we were used to the death penalty so much. It was a middle age in Europe. So it's important to have in mind how many Japanese know that. How many Japanese know that most of the countries in the world, and especially democracy, has abolished death penalty. Only the worst dictatorship use the death penalty as a political tool. It's important. So a free debate in a country is important. And last but not least, and the French example is interesting, most of the countries who have abolished the death penalty have abolished the death penalty without the support of the public, of their own public opinion. In France, when President Mitterrand in 1981 abolished the death penalty, 70% of the French people, public opinion, were against the abolition. Only 25% support the abolition at the time. And the public opinion follow their government decision, always, not only in France, in all the countries. Most of the countries have abolished death penalty from a political leadership and willingness. The only countries in the history who have abolished death penalty with a strong support of the public opinion was countries after a revolution, after a long period of dictatorship. It was the case in the after the South American dictatorship in the 70s, when the democracy came. They came with the abolition, and they came with a strong support from the civil society and the public opinion. Same in Iran nowadays. The Iranian population supports the abolition because they know what does it mean to live under oppression and how the death penalty is used for this oppression.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this online. いいですか、海田先生。どうぞ。
一言だけ、政治的なイニシアチブが重要であるということについて僕ももちろん同意するんですけれども、日本の政治家が死刑の廃止の考え方を持っていたとしても、それを口に出すことは極めて難しい。それを口にした途端に次の選挙で落ちる可能性がある。日本の選挙制度は小選挙区制ですから。いいですか？
Well, I just wanted to say that I also agree that political initiative is very important on this topic. However, it's very difficult for the politicians to say in public that they're in favor of abolition because of this single seat constituency system that we have in Japan. They fear that they may not be re-elected if they show this opinion of favor to abolition.
元法務大臣だった平岡秀夫さんは、死刑の法務大臣の期間死刑を執行しなかった。そして死刑について疑問の念を提起しただけで次の選挙で落選しました。今返り咲いていますけれども。
Well, for example, Mr. Hideo Hiraoka, who was the Minister of Justice in the past, during the period while he was the minister, he didn't approve of executing anyone. However, and also he sort of doubted of the validity of this death penalty system, and with that, he lost the election soon afterwards, although he came back to the political world again.
ですから私はもちろんポリティカルイニシアチブの重要性を否定しませんが、もう一つ、罪を犯した人の処遇に当たっている法務省、検察庁のトップオフィシャルが死刑制度に対して公然と反対の意見を述べるべきだし、そういう意見が述べられることによって日本の死刑廃止、政治家がそういう発言をすることも可能になるでしょうし、世界の死刑廃止の流れを見ていても現実に死刑を執行している、法務省の、官僚たちがそれを言い出すということがもうかなり重要なことではないかというふうに思います。私の意見は以上です。
So while we'd like to see more political initiative, it may be difficult, and so I would like to hear more from Ministry of Justice, for example, or the prosecutors agency, that they are against the death penalty system, and with that, maybe we'll be able to change the opinions of the politicians or the general public.
一言だけ今回ですね、死刑と司法というテーマのセッションを持つんですけれども、そこに、韓国やモンゴルの司法関係者の方が来てくださるんですが、日本の裁判官も日本の元検察官も誰一人この、セッションに参加してくれる方を僕たちは見つけることができませんでした。それが今の日本の現実です。
And actually, in this Congress we were having, there will be a session on the theme of judicial system, and there will be some representatives from Korea and also from Mongolia. However, we were not able to find any prosecutor or any members who would be willing to participate from Japan.
Just one remark. You will find also during the Congress in the debate a full debate on the issue of the public opinion with all very important experts on this issue. So if you are interested about the specific issue about public opinion, you have in the program particular debate and roundtable on this issue.
Right. Mai Sato has written a book
Yes.
about this, right? About the way that the public opinion surveys are. Yeah. We're actually out of time. Can I just ask, apropos to Kaido Sensei's comment, are there any MPs, any lawmakers in Japan who are against the death penalty, who are explicitly against it, who say it in the public?
その死刑制度に廃止に反対を積極的に推進している政治家とかっていうのがいらっしゃる。
平岡さんはそうですね。あと杉浦
廃止に賛成の方ですか？
廃止に賛成です。あと杉浦政権さん、どちらも元国会議員ですけれども。
Well, Mr. Hideo Hiraoka, I mentioned just now, and also Seiken Sugiura, these are people who are for the abolition of death penalty.
元職です。
Right. So two 議員2人しかいないですか？
いや、福島みずほさんも私の妻ですけれど反対していますけれど。
Okay, well, thank you very much to our speakers. It's a very interesting topic, and I personally would like to talk about it more, but we do only have an hour. Thank you to Kaido Sensei, Ogawara Sensei, and Raphaël for a very interesting talk. Make sure you have the brochures which are given out, and just to repeat, the regional conference will take place this weekend from Friday, right? And do you want to tell everybody the venue one more time, please? The venue and the times.
Yeah, it will be held in the Risho University. Risho University on Friday at 4:30 at 4:30, and for the opening session, And all the debates and roundtable will take place during the weekend in Risho University on Saturday and Sunday for the closing ceremony with many also interesting participants.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Please show your appreciation to our speakers today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raphaël.